come back to the last movement of the Schumann Quintet. I previously did some work starting from the back. Today I'm going to take stock of where I am, so I'm going to start from the front. Let's see. I'm skipping because the beginning is not that tricky, but these little things, they're tricky. They're not hard, but they're tricky. There's a difference. In other words, I know they're not hard to execute, but conceptually, just having the right fingering, having even the right note, having the right way of reading them so that the complexity on the page is reduced by a solution that I can trust. And then I want what the page says is to simply remind me of my solution. So, I think maybe a little hands alone work. If I do 2, 1, 1, 2, not a problem here. If I stick with where I am in my left hand, 3, 1, then I have to shift over. And I'm not sure I want that. After the slur, it's a perfect breath point. If I shift to 4, then I'm ready to go. Let's see if that works here. Although I'm not a big fan of putting my thumb on a black note wedged in against the white note second. It works fine here. I mean, the alternative would be to turn my hand over, and I don't think I need that. And another reason is that it'll crowd my right hand if my left hand wastes the thumb part of the hand, because it'll intrude on the space of the right hand. So that's often a determining factor. So, let's see. 4, 2 on the C. 4 on the B, 2, 4. Okay. The difference between this and the beginning, from the right hand perspective, is the chord. So I let go of the keyboard, and on I go. Now let's see what the right hand is up to. So I know I want to have 2 on the bottom. So the question then is, do I want to move to it, or do I want to have it already there? Well, I'd rather be comfortable in this case, so I'm going to go 1, 3, which is about as good as it gets. Then move my hand. It's much easier than having my hand in a slightly awkward position and saying, good for me. 1, 3 is much better. As to the next one, 8, 5, 4, black-white semitone. So I'm going to go 1, 3 and use 4 on top. So, shift my left, shift both, move right, shift left. That's a lot of talk, a lot of description of what I'm doing. But I gotta say, when I just confronted this earlier on, it seems so arbitrary. And what I'm doing now, it's not arbitrary. There's a lot of motion involved, but it's motion towards comfort and simplicity. So, move. I like it. 4. Gives me a sense that the familiarity grows quickly, that it has an identity, a physical identity, to go along with the weird way it looks on the keys, on the score. Shift, yes, and then here. A reminder that I should go to 4th because it opens up my hand nicely. thumb. Non-legato, so I don't need to worry about particularly connected fingering. Although it doesn't hurt to remind myself what works. So I'm going to go 3, 2, 1, 1 in the right hand, in the left hand, and then 2, 1, 1. Myself to let go of the bass note with the pedal that's indicated here. Obviously, I thought that through, so now I'm willing to buy into that. So, 3 in the left, 2 in the left, turn to the 3, that works. Turn to the third. Okay, I'll do it again. Turn to the third. Forgot the 2. I didn't write the 2. Never overestimate your intelligence or your memory. In other words, in a thoughtful moment I could say, now what is that fingering I'm using? But in the heat of battle, it's nice to just have it there. So the redundancy, for my own sake at least, I approve of entirely. 2, it says 2. 2. Even though I'm going from 2, go 1. Actually, I like that a little bit better, so I'm going to write that too. Finish off that left-hand group with a doubled thumb. So. Full 7th chord. Okay. Play it, I didn't expect that full accord, so I have to remind myself of that. How do I want to play the diminished chord? These are small details. It's not difficult, but it has to be done. Left undone, it'll betray you at some point in the process. So I'm going to use 5, 3. I'm going to tilt my hand a little, play this diminished chord, 5, 3, 1. With a black note thumb, and it's no big deal. And by turning my hand, the angle reduces or eliminates tension. Turn my hand and remind myself of the 7th chord, moving my thumb upward. So. Here I'm going to use 4th finger on this second inversion G minor. Right. 3 works. 3 to begin with, actually, as in the previous one. Comfortable in the left hand here than it was with the 2 black notes. So for many people, maybe going 2, 1, 1, 1. For me, the 3 is just a convenience. So I'm going to stick with it. I'm also going to remind myself that I'm turning over to the 3rd on the 3rd one. So. My tempo is screwy in any fashion, I'm just fleshing out that sense of comfort, whatever the tempo may be, and it's not going to be too fast, of course. We're going to have delicacy here, so if that becomes our tempo, then that's fine. an advantage when the hands reinforce one another. Schumann writes on the downbeat of the third measure of 2, which is also B. I should keep writing these in because it'll help me in rehearsal. The downbeat of the right hand is an accent. The left hand, although it doesn't have an accent written, it has an agogic accent in essence. It has a longer note, a half note. So that the gesture reinforces the arrival on the downbeat in both hands. Arrive. Now normally I might just go from 5 to 4-2-1 here for the second inversion to E minor. But because of where it's going, I'm going to bother to bring up the 5th finger. It's a more comfortable chord anyway, and there's plenty of time. Same principle and same desire for redundancy. There's also, for me, an unexpected reiteration of the bass notes. I have to remind myself of that. Probably the second finger in this third. Don't do it if it's not comfortable. I'm going 4, 3, 2, 4. Yes, yes. Okay. Slightly sinewy writing for the left hand. It has a melody that it doubles with the viola. I'm going to follow my own advice here. We shift to 4-2. Not that it's right under my hand, so what would be right under my hand right now would be 5-3. So why did I do 4-2? I can review what I said to myself. Well, I know why I did it. Because I didn't like to have to continue there and get all squished. It also gives me a little better connection to the 5th, the next note. And then there's the third alternative. I can go 5-3 instead of going up to 1 on the F sharp. I can use second and move in, and then come back out for the white notes. It feels a little untrustworthy. You can hear it, and I feel it. Let's see. If I do 2-4, to optimize it, I really have to fling my hand quite a lot, commit it to way down here, and then move on, and then move on. And then this 5-2, boy, there's not a lot of room for me here. But if I move in on it, rather than come back out, I also hear the heaviness of the thumb. The black note is protruding and coming up to meet the thumb, so I have to make sure that on the concert piano, I don't let that happen. It's very easy to get to this key. Well, actually, it's very easy to get to it with either fingering. I I see. Okay. I'm trying every possibility. If I go to 5-3, I'm finding that sticking with 1, 3, and 5 is really lousy for me. So now I'm trying going to 1, 2, 4 for the last part. So that would be 5-3, then 1, 2, 4. Such a tiny little detail can be so cumbersome. Actually, I don't know what my ultimate solution will be, but I'm passing at least temporary judgment and saying that getting to the 3-5 is the easiest way of getting to the B-D, and continuing with a 2-4 on B-flat-D is the easiest way of executing the end. So I've got, at the very least, a decision that this is best and this is best. The question is the combination best? And the last time I did it, a moment ago, I had an inkling that that was so. Arrive and then the shift on. I still have a lack of commitment to here, being sold on it. Okay. I'm just thinking out loud. That time I went all the way up to 4-1, so that it would be such a significant change that the body would just accept that I'm not trying to force my fingers to do stuff, but rather, once I've chosen that fingering and hand group, that my body will do it of its own volition. So to go from 2-4 and then to 4-1, 2-4 to 1. As opposed to 3. It's more elegant, 3. I think if I turn my hand ever so slightly to favor the falling out to 3, so that I go upward toward the thumb, that makes it work. 5-3, 5-3. I'm glad we've had this little talk. I think that's, for today, for now, going to be my solution. Oh, I forgot. I've got to shift. I've got to find a way of shifting. I could either shift right away to 4-2 on the downbeat. So then I'd have 4-2, 2-4, 2-5, 3-5. Feels a lot better to be on 2-4. Really does set up the next key swell. Because it gives me this group very comfortably. So this is reasonable. Shift. Draw a line. So shift again. Shift and finish and shift again. Shift and finish and shift again. Okay. Wow. this is what we call unpianistic. Okay. Luckily, the right hand is minding its own business. Starts off as a simple trill. This is not arbitrary rhythms, incidentally. I'm going to bridge the transition to make sure I can get there comfortably, or either to bridge the transition or to feel that I've completed a gesture. This is a transition. Now I've completed the gesture. Got to go on my list. Again, it's something that I know is going to work. I can feel the productivity. I don't trust it, but I trust that the process will work itself out. I trust that I will trust it. And having said that, I trust it better, not completely. Okay. I'll start with 2 in the left hand. Gives me plenty of fingers. Shift on the one that starts on C, going 3, 2, and then I'm going to shift to 2. It just finishes off that group a little more simply for me. So. And I've also got to remind myself the figuration that Schumann chooses is to have a simple trill for the first group, then he adds the octave. Myself tossing from my 5th finger, not to it. Aha! So I'm just reminding myself of the line. To start with 3rd on the next one, let's see, so. I start doing what Schumann asked, namely to make the bass line. There are places where going 5 to 5, I can't do it under my fingers, but it may be to my advantage to come closer for those fingers that tempo at which it overwhelms me mentally. Familiarizing myself both orally and physically with what's going on. Schumann makes the slightest little detail changes that make the coordination of the hands, especially if you're trying to have a mental command over what you're doing, extremely complicated. So you have to make sure that you forge a sense of simplicity in your relationship to your material. I don't yet have that. So, for example, having the right inflections, oops, and I misinterpreted the slur. The slur is on the resolution, so all non-legato, then a slur. It's a scale and it gets chromatic. You have this nice diminished third. So I want to trust that, because when my right hand is doing it, but in a different place, when you're playing a canon with yourself, it's impossible to really think of all the things that are going on at the same time. So you have to determine what, where, how, and when you think about them. Okay, so the right hand is moving, it's starting the theme. The left hand is sitting still, so that's great. So when my left hand takes over, it's got a nice sense of shape. Before, and the right hand turns back. I just need a little bit of almost verbal input, certainly mental input. That's it. So, just think right, think left, whoops. There when it turns back to C. There it is. Well, I'm not afraid to drill when I know what I'm doing, but I certainly don't want to drill and repeat at the wrong tempo with the wrong degree of insistence when I'm insisting on something that I don't trust. So that's starting to work. Let's see. So I note when it's the right hand that has to go up the third. Because it's not right under the hand. When so much of it is in seconds, when there's suddenly a third, that's a shock. Left hand. Yes. And more of this. Got to review what I just did. What was D sharp? After a half note. I have to make sure that I've clarified that shift. Okay, I'm going to go back. So, since I revised my fingering before, I'm certainly not going to have the old fingering staring me in the face here. 5, and shift to 1, 2, 4. That's again one advantage of Schumann's repetitions. If you've done something that took a lot of pain, blood, sweat, and tears, and it comes back again, you gain extra benefit for your hard work. Whoa! Completely curious about the fact that the first group has the extra octave. So I'm going to circle it. I'm going to check with my partners. There's no reason that I can think of that he did that. Well, another thing he did was he started with a fuller chord before. He's wanting to maintain that figuration. He does it throughout, so it gives it an extra busyness. So he is consistent within himself in this section. And that makes me feel better. Whereas with single notes, you have the extra D thrown in for good measure. So that's important to compare these two parallel passages because they're not exactly the same. I always like to remind myself and my students that things that are not exactly the same are much harder to differentiate between than things that are markedly different. So you have to go out of your way sometimes to define the exact nature of the difference. Yes. And now we do a different modulation. Does in this piece a complete shift from where you grew up. It's a shock to your harmonic ear, and it may be a shock to what your body expects. So you have to get it ready. Myself, go to 5 for this tritone, backwards fingering, then to 2 for the sake of this. Am I right? There are certainly negatives to each. Thinking out loud. I could stick with 4, which I have been doing 5. 5 then sets up 3 on a flat. If I'm going to do 5, I have to stress, for comfort's sake, I have to continue to move my arm outward. For comfort. Otherwise, I can stay straighter to the keyboard with 4. I still have to tilt my hand somewhat for this black note E flat, especially because there's going to be a G natural. Well, maybe rather than 2, 3, 1, 2, 4, I'll go 3, 4 to 5. That again would be more comfortable on me, keep my hand much more neutral. Which, if I'm going to 3, 4, which of those two alternate fingerings works better? I think the 5. 2, 4, 2, 5, 3. In fact, I don't even have to come back if I don't want to. I can continue to go in. I'm going to stop for a second.